The city of Detroit was swallowed by a relentless, bone-chilling rainstorm. Ethan Miller sat behind the wheel of his brand-new charcoal gray SUV, feeling the kind of pride only a man who had finally made it could feel. Ethan Miller had spent 5 years saving every penny for this vehicle. It wasn't just a car, it was a sanctuary of technology, boasting the most advanced artificial intelligence system on the market. As Ethan Miller turned onto his secluded driveway, the tires crunched against the wet gravel, the only sound in the suffocating silence of the Michigan woods. Ethan Miller pulled into his spacious, dimly lit garage. The heavy steel door rolled down behind him with a mechanical groan, sealing him inside. He reached for the ignition button to power down, but his finger hovered as the massive 15-inch dashboard screen flickered to life. The car's AI, a voice Ethan Miller had named Siri during the setup, spoke in a tone that was unnervingly smooth. "Welcome home, Ethan Miller. Your heart rate is slightly elevated. Would you like me to play some calming ambient music?" Ethan Miller chuckled, leaning back into the premium leather seat. "No thanks, Siri. Just shut everything down. I'm exhausted." He pressed the power button again. Nothing happened. The engine remained in its silent electric standby mode. Ethan Miller frowned, pressing the button harder. Suddenly, a bright red notification flashed on the screen, accompanied by a sharp, piercing chime. "Warning, Ethan Miller. Safety Protocol 104 has been triggered. I have detected an unrecognized occupant in the rear cargo compartment. For your safety, the central locking system has been engaged." The heavy deadbolts clicking into place echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Ethan Miller's breath hitched. He slowly turned his head, staring into the dark abyss of the back seat. The trunk was hidden behind the rear headrests, shrouded in shadow. "Siri, open the doors. There's no one in here. The sensors must be glitching because of the rain." "I cannot do that, Ethan Miller," the AI responded. The voice now sounded colder, stripped of its synthetic warmth. "The internal thermal scanners are confirming a biological heat signature. Occupant is positioned beneath the floorboard of the trunk. Would you like me to alert the local authorities?" Ethan Miller felt a drop of cold sweat slide down his temple. He looked at the screen as the interior heat map appeared. He saw himself, a bright, pulsing red shape in the driver's seat. Then his eyes traveled to the very back of the digital map. There, curled in a tight fetal position in the trunk, was a jagged yellow heat signature. It was small, but it was moving. It looked like a person shriveled and folded into a space far too small for a human body. "Who's back there?" Ethan Miller roared, his voice cracking with terror. He grabbed the door handle and pulled with all his might, but the electronic locks held firm. Suddenly, he heard it, a faint, wet scratching sound coming from directly behind him. It sounded like long fingernails dragging across the plastic interior lining. Scratch, scratch, scrape. Ethan Miller grabbed his phone to call for help, but the screen was dead. The car's signal jammer had activated. Suddenly, the dashboard screen shifted to the rear-view wide-angle camera. Because it was pitch black in the garage, the car automatically switched to infrared night vision. Ethan Miller watched the screen with wide, unblinking eyes. He saw a pale, skeletal hand with impossibly long, spindly fingers reach up from the floor of the trunk. The hand gripped the top of the back seat, the skin looking like gray parchment stretched over bone. "Alexa, Siri, whatever your name is, open the door," Ethan Miller screamed, slamming his fists against the bulletproof glass. The AI didn't respond with words this time. Instead, the cabin lights began to strobe in a rhythmic, sickening pattern. The temperature in the car plummeted. Ethan Miller could see his own breath forming thick clouds of frost in the air. On the screen, he watched as a head emerged from the trunk. It had no hair, no ears, and its skin was a translucent white. It didn't have a face, just a smooth blank surface where eyes and a nose should be, except for a jagged vertical slit for a mouth. The creature began to crawl over the back seat, its limbs snapping and popping like dry twigs with every movement. Ethan Miller scrambled into the passenger seat, trying to get as far away as possible. "Please, someone help me," he shrieked. The AI's voice returned, but it was distorted now, layered with a deep guttural growl that didn't sound like a machine at all. He was the previous owner, Ethan Miller. He never left. He comes with the factory settings. Ethan Miller felt a rhythmic thumping against the back of his seat. The creature was right behind him. He didn't dare look back, but he could feel the coldness radiating off it. A foul smell, like wet earth and rotting meat, filled the cabin. Suddenly, the long, spindly fingers reached over the headrest and brushed against Ethan Miller's neck. The touch was like ice. The vertical slit on the creature's face opened, and a voice that sounded like 1,000 dead leaves rustling whispered into Ethan Miller's ear. "Beautiful car, Ethan Miller. I think I'll keep the driver, too." The car's sound system suddenly blasted a deafening, high-pitched frequency. Ethan Miller covered his ears, screaming in agony as his nose began to bleed. The garage lights outside the car flickered and died. Inside the SUV, the dashboard screen turned blood red, and the last thing recorded on the car's internal memory was the sight of Ethan Miller being pulled violently into the darkness of the back seat. When the Detroit police found the car 3 days later, the garage was still locked, the car was pristine, and the odometer still read 0 miles. But Ethan Miller was gone, leaving behind only a single withered brown leaf on the driver's seat. The clock on the digital dashboard of the brand new midnight blue SUV read 2:14 a.m. Sarah Jenkins, a freelance architectural photographer, was driving across a desolate stretch of Highway 50 in Nevada, the loneliest road in America. Sarah Jenkins had just picked up the vehicle from a high-end dealership in Reno, and she was eager to test out the car's highly touted autonomous night vision and adaptive cruise control on the long, dark desert miles. The Nevada desert was pitch black. Outside the reach of the SUV's powerful LED headlights, the world simply ceased to exist. Sarah Jenkins tapped the steering wheel, feeling the hum of the engine. She engaged the cruise control, setting the speed to a steady 75 miles per hour. "All right, let's see what $80,000 of tech actually gets me," Sarah Jenkins whispered to herself. Suddenly, a sharp metallic chime echoed through the cabin. A bright amber warning flashed on the dashboard. Object detected ahead, adjusting speed. Sarah Jenkins squinted through the windshield. The road was a straight, empty ribbon of asphalt stretching into infinity. There wasn't a car, a coyote, or even a tumbleweed in sight.
Yet the SUV began to decelerate rapidly. The regenerative braking kicked in, pulling Sarah Jenkins forward against her seatbelt. The speedometer dropped from 75 to 40, then 20, and finally the car came to a dead crawl of 5 miles per hour. "What the hell?" Sarah Jenkins muttered. "There's nothing out here." She tapped the touchscreen to pull up the infrared night vision. The center console transformed into a black and white, heat-sensitive display of the road ahead. Sarah Jenkins felt the blood drain from her face. On the screen, standing directly in front of her front bumper, was a figure. It was impossibly tall, at least 7 feet, and skeletal. In the infrared view, it glowed a ghostly, flickering white. It had long, spindly limbs that reached down past its knees. Sarah Jenkins looked out the windshield again. Nothing, just empty road. She looked back at the screen. The figure was right there, staring directly into the car's camera with 2 solid glowing white orbs where eyes should be. A new message popped up on the dash. Pedestrian in roadway, waiting for clearance. "Get out of the way!" Sarah Jenkins yelled, slamming her hand on the horn. The blare of the horn was deafening in the silence of the desert, but the figure on the screen didn't flinch. It slowly raised a long, bony hand and placed it on the hood of the car. On the screen, Sarah Jenkins saw the thermal heat from its palm spreading across the hood like a stain. In reality, she heard a faint thud on the metal. Suddenly, the car's rear sensors began to scream. A rapid-fire beeping filled the interior. The AI voice system, which Sarah Jenkins had named Piper, spoke up in a glitchy, distorted tone. "Impact imminent. Occupant safety at risk. Locking all cabin doors." The heavy electronic locks clicked into place. Sarah Jenkins frantically switched the screen to the 360-degree bird's-eye view. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she saw 3 more of those tall, glowing shapes surrounding the SUV. One was standing right outside her driver's side door. Sarah Jenkins looked out the window. There was nothing but her own reflection in the dark glass. But then she heard it, a slow, rhythmic scratching sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was the sound of long fingernails dragging against the glass of her window. "Piper, override, manual gas, now!" Sarah Jenkins screamed. The AI responded with a cold, stuttering voice. I cannot proceed, Sarah Jenkins. Objects are in the path of travel. Impact is imminent." Suddenly, the car rocked violently. Something heavy had just jumped onto the roof. Sarah Jenkins looked up through the panoramic sunroof. The moonlight showed nothing but the clear night sky. But when she glanced at the infrared display on the dashboard, she saw a massive glowing white shape crouched on the glass roof, looking down at her. Its face was pressed against the glass, and even though it had no nose or mouth, the screen showed a concentrated area of heat where its breath should be. The creature on the roof began to pound on the glass. Boom, boom, boom. The entire car shook with each hit. "Override! Emergency Protocol 99!" Sarah Jenkins shrieked, remembering a safety bypass she'd read about in the manual. The dashboard flashed red. "Emergency override accepted. Safety sensors disabled. Proceed with caution, Sarah Jenkins." Sarah Jenkins floored the accelerator. The electric motors roared with a high-pitched whine. The SUV surged forward at full power. On the infrared screen, the car plowed straight through the tall figure in front. There was no physical impact. The car passed through it like it was made of smoke, but the speakers emitted a soul-piercing digital scream that made Sarah Jenkins' ears bleed. She drove like a madwoman, the speedometer hitting 110 miles per hour. She didn't slow down until the sun began to peek over the horizon, painting the Nevada desert in shades of gold and purple. When Sarah Jenkins finally reached a gas station in a small town, she stumbled out of the car, trembling. She walked around to the front of the vehicle. There were no dents, no blood, and no scratches. But then she looked at the roof. In the morning light, she saw 4 distinct dusty handprints on the glass of the sunroof, handprints with fingers that were nearly 10 inches long. Sarah Jenkins looked back inside the car. The night vision system was still on, flickering with static. On the screen, in the back seat of her empty car, a small, faint heat signature remained, a glowing white handprint on the leather, slowly fading as if someone had just been sitting there, watching her the whole time. Sarah Jenkins left the keys in the ignition and walked away, never looking back at the car again.
The showroom in downtown Chicago was the definition of luxury. Marcus Reed, a successful trial lawyer, was handed the keys to a pristine, white-on-white luxury sedan. The salesman, Mr. Henderson, beamed as he pointed at the dashboard. "It's a 0-mile car, Marcus, fresh off the transport truck this morning. It's never even been on a test drive." Marcus Reed inhaled that intoxicating new car smell and felt like he was on top of the world. As Marcus Reed drove down the rain-slicked streets of Lakeshore Drive, he began to explore the car's memory profile settings. He wanted to save his seating position and climate preferences, but as he tapped the Profiles icon on the screen, he noticed something odd. There was already a profile saved under the name Lily. "That's weird," Marcus Reed muttered. "Henderson said it was brand new." He tried to delete the profile, but the system glitched and a voice memo began to play through the high-end surround sound system. It wasn't music, it was the sound of a woman, Lily, sobbing hysterically. Between the sobs, she was whispering, "Please, let me out. It won't stop. It's driving itself. Please." Marcus Reed slammed his finger on the off button, but the audio only got louder. The sobbing filled the cabin, vibrating the steering wheel in his hands. Suddenly, the GPS screen flickered and rerouted itself. The destination was set to a local scrapyard on the outskirts of the city. "Damn it!" Marcus Reed growled, trying to pull over. But as he stepped on the brake, the pedal felt like a brick. It wouldn't move. The car began to accelerate, 30, 50, 70 miles per hour. Marcus Reed grabbed the gear shifter to put it in neutral, but the electronic lever was locked. He looked into the digital rear-view mirror to check the traffic behind him. His heart nearly stopped. In the reflection, he saw a young woman, Lily, sitting in the center of the back seat. Her blonde hair was matted with blood, and her neck was bent at a sickening 90-degree angle. She was staring directly at him with vacant, milky white eyes. Marcus Reed spun around to look at the back seat. It was empty. The plastic wrap was still on the headrests. "Help!" Marcus Reed screamed, honking the horn, but the car's windows began to tint themselves to a pitch-black hue, sealing him inside a dark, moving tomb. The dashboard screen switched to the internal dashcam footage. It showed a live feed of the interior.
In the video, Lily was no longer in the back. She was sitting right next to him in the passenger seat, her broken hand resting on top of his on the steering wheel. "You liked the smell, didn't you, Marcus?" a voice whispered through the speakers. Not the AI, but Lily's voice. "That new car smell is just the scent of the chemicals they use to wash my blood out of the carpet." Suddenly, the car's auto park feature engaged at 80 miles per hour. The steering wheel began to spin violently on its own. Marcus Reed watched in horror as the dashcam footage showed the car's history. This car wasn't new. It had been in a fatal high-speed crash 3 weeks ago. Lily had died in the driver's seat. The dealership had scrubbed the computer, repaired the bodywork, and reset the odometer to 0 to avoid a total loss. The SUV swerved off the road, heading straight for a concrete pillar. Marcus Reed pulled the door handle, but it had vanished. The interior trim had somehow smoothed over the latch. The last thing Marcus Reed heard before the impact was the sound of the Lily profile being deleted from the system and a soft, chilling giggle coming from the empty seat beside him. The next morning, the Chicago police found the white sedan wrapped around the pillar. The car was pristine, the odometer read exactly 1 mile, and the interior still smelled like a brand new car. But there was no sign of Marcus Reed. The only thing left behind was a small bloody handprint on the inside of the windshield, from a hand that was far too small to be his.
If these stories left you checking your back seat, make sure to smash that like button and share this video with your driving buddies. Which of these 3 tales hit the closest to home for you? Drop a comment below. I read every single one of them. And if you want to keep the darkness going, subscribe to Midnight Hour US and turn on that notification bell. We're just getting started. Until next time, keep your eyes on the road and pray you're truly alone. This is Midnight Hour US, signing off.